For a little bit of context, I'm 46M, a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Tim was younger. And even before my son was born, we were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together, etc. Everyone loves my son, and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack was always my son's favorite person. Back when my son was 3 to 4 years old, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me, think freelancing versus a 9 to 5, so they always volunteered to look after Tim, something he loved. Almost every month they would take him to the zoo, or the aquarium, or they'd even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he started to develop the same interests as my brother, like video games, photography, and music. When Tim was 9, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say, they were extremely close. Last year, my brother informed me that he and his GF Mary were getting married. I knew that neither Jack nor his GF believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my SIL's mom. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year, we received the invitation, and it was addressed to both me and my son. I even had a +1 if I wanted. And as soon as the website went up, I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email confirmation, it said room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it and just assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my SIL called me crying saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently, the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was 13 at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Tim and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed, and I told my SIL I'd talk to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding, but she insisted both her and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he wouldn't be able to go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my SIL got frustrated and just told him that he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Tim eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Tim would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. On our family gatherings, Tim would only respond to small questions like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help Grandma with the plates." But he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary tried to start a conversation or ask him about school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding. But my son just ignored them, and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place, and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Tim's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year. And when I said yes, he asked me not to invite his aunt and uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mom's house, and the conversation of Tim's university came up. My mom asked him if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack, and that he should start planning for that. But my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore, and he had chosen to study something else. Then my mom said, "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle," and my son just said, "Why would I want to be like him?" At this point, I intervened and told Tim he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. Both my brother and SIL heard what he said, and they left shortly after. Last night, my brother texted me saying I was an asshole for letting my son continue with this grudge, and he even accused me of being jealous of their relationship, and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions, and that this was 100% his fault by allowing his POS mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mom and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother, so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent, and it was just a small mistake. But I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt, and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. So, Ada? Update. The short of it is that I informed my mom that both Leo and I would stop going to the family gatherings until things calmed down, and more importantly, until he felt comfortable again. She was understandably upset, but I think she finally understood how much she had been hurting Leo. What surprised me is that my mom told me that Jack had become depressed, so she was worried about him. And that's why she was so insistent that Leo should forgive him. I basically told her that if we forced Leo to forgive my brother, we risked pushing him away from us. The weekend after I posted here, I texted my brother asking him to meet me so we could talk. I had told him that I wanted to speak with him alone, so Mary wasn't present. Jack immediately apologized and said how much he regretted what he had done and the things he had told me. He confirmed what I already suspected and said he was stressed because of the constant fights with Mary. He mentioned that he had considered divorce because of how bad the fights got. I may seem cruel here, but I basically told him that I didn't care about that. What I wanted was for him to tell me the truth about what the hell had happened. Jack maintains that he didn't know about the venue being child-free until last November. However, like many of you suspected, Mary had known for quite a while, maybe even the whole time. Apparently, this all started a few years back when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach. While they were playing, my son had accidentally called Jack Dad before quickly correcting himself. From what Jack told me, it was a small mistake like when you call a teacher Mom. Leo was embarrassed, but Jack just laughed it off. The catch: Jack's MIL, Karen, and FIL had joined them for that vacation, and they overheard Leo when that happened. When they came back from their vacation, Karen had gone ballistic, claiming she was triggered by some random kid calling Jack Dad, knowing that Mary can't have children. Mary had tried to explain it was just a misunderstanding, but Karen became extremely toxic and abusive towards Mary, and she started making demands like not inviting Leo over when Karen visited, etc. So when Jack and Mary decided to get married, and since they initially just wanted to elope and not have a party at all, Karen manipulated Mary and convinced her to let her plan the perfect wedding for her only daughter. Mary gave in because she was sick of several years of emotional manipulation, and she just wanted to keep the peace. So Karen hijacked the wedding, and she chose the child-free venue on purpose. As for my son, I apologize for not standing up to him and forcing him to meet with the family every week. I told him that he could decide what he wanted to do with that part of the family going forward. He seemed reluctant to stop going, but I let him know that I would support him no matter what and that I wouldn't be upset. What made me happy was that Leo suggested we could stop going to the family every week and instead we could spend more time together, he and I, doing some of the things he used to do with my brother. Last week we went to a vintage car show, and next week we're going to watch Wicked. I'm not a theater guy, but it sounds fun. Finally, we decided to take a trip to his dream destination for my birthday. I was a little bit sad because it's going to be the first time in almost 50 years that I don't celebrate a birthday with my brother, but I've got my son and that's all that matters.